The airport terminal hummed with distant announcements and the low rumble of rolling suitcases, but Gate 47 felt like its own isolated world. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, reflecting off polished floors that smelled faintly of disinfectant. Sophia sat alone in the last row of hard plastic seats, staring at the departure board flashing another delay 3 hours now. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, sleet slashed sideways across the tarmac, grounding everything. At 42, after burying her only sibling 2 days ago, the cold delay felt like the universe refusing to let her go home. She pulled her coat tighter, the thin fabric doing little against the chill seeping through the glass. Memories pressed in her brother's laugh over late-night phone calls, the way he'd promised they'd grow old together. Now silence. She could scroll her phone, pretend to read, shut it all out. But her hand stayed still in her lap. A man in a navy peacoat walked slowly past the rows, coffee in one hand, boarding pass in the other. Late 40s, close-cropped hair going gray at the sides, eyes scanning the sparse crowd. He paused near her gate, checked the board, sighed quietly. Then, instead of claiming a seat far away, he lowered himself 2 chairs over from Sophia, close enough for company, far enough for space. He set his coffee down, reached into a small canvas tote, and pulled out a folded wool blanket. Soft, deep green, clearly well used. Without looking at her directly, he unfolded it halfway and draped the spare half across the empty seat between them, letting the edge brush near her arm. A silent offer. Sophia glanced at him. He was already opening a paperback, settling in as if this were routine. No smile, no explanation. Just the blanket waiting. She hesitated. Accepting felt like admitting weakness, like letting a stranger see how hollow she felt. Pride tugged she'd handled the funeral arrangements alone, the flight alone, everything alone. But the cold bit deeper, and the blanket's warmth radiated subtly. Slowly, she pulled the offered half over her lap. The man turned a page unperturbed. Through that single action, he revealed himself someone who traveled often, who noticed discomfort in others, who carried extra because he knew delays happen. His name remained unknown, but his quiet steadiness spoke volumes. Minutes stretched. Sophia's fingers tightened on the wool. Doubt flickered. What if he expected conversation, pity? She almost folded the blanket back, stood to move, but the fabric smelled faintly of cedar and coffee, grounding her. She stayed. He sipped his drink, then wordlessly slid a second paper cup across the armrest, still warm black coffee, lid slightly askew as if he'd bought 2 on instinct. She took it, hands wrapping around the heat. Their eyes met briefly. His held no questions, only calm acknowledgement. Gratitude rose, soft and unexpected. She nodded. He returned to his book. Hours passed in shared silence. The storm raged outside, announcements droned, but the corner of gate 47 felt warmer. Sophia's shoulders loosened. The grief didn't vanish, but it shared space with something gentler. When the board finally flipped to boarding, the man stood first. He folded his blanket neatly, tucked it away. Sophia started to return the coffee cup, but he shook his head once, keep it. Then he joined the short line, disappearing down the jet bridge without a backward glance. She boarded last, blanket still draped over her shoulders like borrowed strength. The flight home was quiet, the wool a shield against recycled air. Weeks later, Sophia unpacked slowly in her apartment. The funeral flowers had wilted, but she kept one pressed petal. Work resumed, graphic design deadlines, client calls, but evenings felt less heavy. She bought a similar green blanket, kept it folded in her carry-on for future trips. One delayed night in another terminal, sleet tapping windows again, she spotted a woman hunched in the cold, staring blankly at the board. Sophia sat 2 seats away, unfolded her blanket, draped half across the empty chair between them, placed a second coffee beside it. The woman hesitated, then accepted. Their eyes met, quiet understanding passing like warmth through wool. Seasons turned. Sophia traveled more for work. Delays became familiar. Each time the cold crept in, she carried the blanket, offered it without words. Some accepted, some didn't. It didn't matter. The gesture lived on. One winter evening, years later, another storm grounded flights. Sophia sat wrapped in green wool when a man in a navy peacoat paused nearby. Older now, but unmistakable. He looked at the blanket, at her, recognition softening his features. He nodded once, took a seat across the aisle, and opened a new paperback. No words passed. None were needed. Outside, sleet continued to fall against the glass of a place meant to be cold. In the end, as boarding finally began, Sophia folded the blanket carefully. Human moments don't need warmth from the building, they bring their own, and leave it behind for the next weary traveler. If this gentle warmth amid the cold touched a tender place in you, subscribe for more stories that remind us humanity travels with us, even through delays. Have you ever shared or received a silent kindness during a long wait or journey? Tell me below your stories, keep the warmth going. And if that shared blanket still lingers in your mind, step into the window seat he gave away. Next, it might just wrap around you the same way.